Welcome back to the Stitch Sessions. Today we are giving you a bonus video. Now, if you're new here, my name is Karen and I love diving into all things to do with crochet and crafting with crochet. So in today's bonus video, we're actually going to begin a mini series. So those of you that follow me quite regularly, you know that we do a yearly crochet series, and I'll leave a link for that in the description box down below. It's called Pillow Talk, where we create a crochet pillow project every month. Now, we are gearing up to the big holiday season. You can see my girl Tallulah here is wearing something very, very festive. I know many of you are probably just gearing up for Halloween just about now, but I wanted to get this series in before we do our annual Crochet Christmas tour, because this project is going to be a big part of it. So what is the project? We are working on a Christmas cardigan. So a lot of you guys are always asking me about doing cardigan projects and different ways to do cardigans. So I've done a couple of tutorials on the 3-block cardigan, and we've also done a raglan style cardigan. I've done it in a child size. This is going to be a bottom-up cardigan, which we haven't done yet here on the channel. And the goal is to make it super simple and really attainable for anyone, especially if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, you're totally going to be able to do this cardigan. So this is going to be done in a 4-part series. Part 1, which you're going to see today. It might go into 5 parts depending on how much time we need to work on the body. So I'm going to use my friend Tallulah here to demonstrate the different parts we're going to work on. So we're going to begin in part 1 by working on the trim, and that is the bottom trim that's going to run along the bottom of your cardigan. In part number 2, actually, sorry, let me back that up. In part 1, first of all, we're going to talk about the yarn and all the materials you're going to have to gather together to create your cardigan. And then the first thing we're going to work on is the bottom trim, okay? In part 2, we're going to work on the body. It's going to be pretty straightforward, but it might need to be 2 parts in part 2. So the beginning is going to be just continuing from the bottom and crocheting all the way up just before it hits the underarm. In our case, we are going to work across the bust line as the underarm of our armhole. And we'll go over that a little bit in the materials portion of this series. Then the second part of the body will be to then create the 3 panels. You've got a panel coming up on the back, and then 2 side panels that will then give you the opportunity to create the armholes. Once that's done, then you're going to sew up your shoulder seams, and then your full body is going to be complete. So I'm hoping that that's all going to be part 2. Our stitch is going to remain really nice and simple. You can do just a strict single crochet stitch. I'm going to just add a little twist to it. We're going to do the linked single crochet stitch, just for those of you that want to add a little extra something funky in the texture. But if all you know is the single crochet stitch, you can do this cardigan, so no worries. And before anyone asks me, because I've had this question before, if you choose to do a double crochet stitch, let's say, you can absolutely do that to create this cardigan. So you just want to go by the measurements that you're going to need. And so we'll talk about that as well in the materials portion, where you can figure out how to size the cardigan to your specific needs. Okay? Once we're done part 2, we're going to go on to part number 3, and that is to actually crochet your sleeves. So we'll crochet sleeve 1, and then you're going to crochet sleeve number 2. And of course, along the way, you'll try it on, you'll see how it fits, and you can make adjustments as you go along. Part number 4 will be the cuffs to our sleeves, and then finally, we're going to do a nice big collar trim all the way around. Now, I'm not putting any buttons on this particular cardigan. You can if you want to, but this is going to be our Christmas cardigan / ugly Christmas cardigan. And I want to get this ready before the Christmas crochet tour, because a lot of that tour is going to have to do with some of the appliques that you can actually place on your cardigan. So I think it's going to be tons of fun. So that's why I wanted to get the biggest part of this project is getting the actual cardigan finished. I know it looks like a lot, right? But I have all the faith in the world that you guys are going to do this with no problem. Like I said, if all you know is a single crochet, you can do this cardigan. So right now, Tallulah has nothing on her. So we want to get some clothes on this girl. So let's get started. We're going to begin by taking you through part 1, and that is creating the bottom trim. Okay guys, are you ready? Let's do this. So this is all the yarn I'm going to be using for my cardigan. Now I may need more, but these are the colors I'm going to be using. So I am diving into the Red Heart Comfort yarn for the main chunk of the cardigan. And in case you are wondering, this color is called Red Shimmer, and it's got this really pretty little sparkle going through it. And I thought for the holiday season, it would be just perfect. It's like I don't know if it comes across on camera, but it's like this really bright cherry red, and I just thought it would be perfect. Now these come in 340 gram skeins. There's a lot of yarn in here. It contains 548 meters or 600 yards. Now, as always, it will depend on your size. Now, I happen to be using this color for my main body, so I may need a second ball of this. So I may need a second skein of this one. So that is the red color in the green here, this beautiful like foresty green, which funny enough is actually called Evergreen. And this is the Bernat Premium yarn. You guys know I love using this yarn. And it contains 329 meters or 360 yards in this skein at 198 grams. And I'm also going to be using another Bernat Premium yarn. And this is like a creamy, vintagey creamy color with some gold tinsel running through it. And it is called Erin Sparkle. And in case you're wondering, it also, see, these skeins are all different. This one is 142 grams and contains 236 meters or 258 yards. And as always, I'm just going to kind of go with the flow and get, if I need more, I'm going to grab more. Now, the cool thing is, because this is meant to be kind of in the vein of an ugly Christmas sweater, we're not going to worry too much if the dye lots are not perfectly. It's actually going to add to the general ambiance of our cardigan here. So this is the yarn. Now, all of these yarns are a medium 4-weight yarn. If you wanted to, you could use a lightweight number 3. I don't know if I would recommend doing a bulky 5. I just think for a cardigan, it just might be too bulky to work with, especially when you're doing things that might have sleeves or might create a lot of extra bulk under the arm. So I myself would recommend medium 4 or a lightweight number 3 if you like. Okay, now the hook size I'm going to be using is a 6mm hook, which is also known as a J or a size number 10. Okay. And as always, make sure that you have a pair of scissors and a yarn needle. Make sure it's a yarn needle, not a thread needle, to sew in and weave in your ends, because you'll have a few of these as we go along. Now, the other thing that you should arm yourself with is a measuring tape. You guys know I like to make all my projects very customizable to you or to whoever you're making it for. So have a measuring tape on hand. I would recommend a pencil and perhaps an eraser. And then I would also recommend you downloading this garment design template, which you can find on the Crochet Crafty website. I will leave a link for it in the description box down below. Lots of other cool goodies on the website, so I recommend you go check that out. But so it's 3 pages here. Now, for some reason, when I printed this out, it printed back and the front. So I just put 2 general body outlines. So one is curvy
and then one is just less curvy. So you can kind of choose the outline that you want to work on. And then this third page here just talks about some of the basic measurements to take note for crochet tops. So in this case, we're working on a cardigan. So if you're getting super, super detailed, these are the measurements that you're going to want to pay attention to. So we've got circumference measurements, meaning any measurements that require you to wrap the measuring tape around you. And then we've got linear or straight measurements, also known as lengthwise. So anything that's like from one end to the other or across one side to the other, okay? Now, the really cool thing is, for the most part, the only measurement you're really going to need is the widest circumference of your body. So for women, depending, it can be your hips or it can be your bust, okay? So that is what you're going to want to do. Now, remember, we are working this cardigan from the bottom up. So this is something that if you've been on this channel for a while, we haven't really done a bottom up cardigan before. So this is going to be a new technique and a new template for you guys to work with. So I'm just going to set this aside now, and I am going to use my little template. And this is where we're going to begin. Before we start stitching up, we're going to talk about how we are going to figure out the measurements of our cardigan. So let's get to it. Okay, guys, so this is me. I'm curvy, so I'm going to use the curvy template. Unfortunately, like I said, I printed on both sides, so I think the other outline is showing through here. But this is the one I'm going to be using. And so for me, the widest part of my body is actually around the hips, okay? And I am going to take that measurement. And so for me, I've already taken that measurement. So I'm just going to make a little note here. So for me, that is 48 inches around my hips. Okay, and then, so if you are working in metric, it is 122 centimeters. So this is an example. These are my measurements. So if you happen to be similar to me, then you would work your cardigan the exact same. This measurement is basically the holy grail for this project. So I really encourage you to take the measurement. So this is why when I write my patterns, just as a little aside, I know sometimes... All right, guys, sorry, I had to change cameras there. So we're back. Now, I was talking about how I write my patterns. A lot of times when I do garments, I really like to do it so that you can customize it right off the bat to you. So a lot of times you'll find a pattern that says, if you are a size small, chain X number, for example. If you're a size medium, chain this. If you're a size large, chain that. The only thing I don't like about that is that, you know, if you're a tighter crocheter, the number of chains I'm telling you to chain might not work for your size. And yes, I understand that this is the purpose of gauge swatches, but let's be honest, a lot of us don't like doing the gauge swatches, right? So for me, I find that this just makes a lot more sense. You can dive right in and figure out how to work out the size directly for you. So this is why I say, have a measuring tape and take the measurement. So this is a circumference measurement. So that means it went all the way around. I'm not an artist. I can't even draw on my template here. So like I said, I have 48 inches around the hip. That is the widest part of me for me. If it is your bust, or it might even be your shoulders, you know, some people have that inverted triangle shape. So whatever that measurement is, just write that down. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that our panel that we're starting with is going to go to that length. And that's it. That's all for now. And so essentially, let me just turn this here. Working from the bottom up of a cardigan, we're going to work from the bottom. And we're going to start off with our trim. So we're actually going to work this way. We're going to create our little ribbing here. And then we'll turn and work the body of our... Are you guys ready to go? Make sure to take your measurement, and then let's get started. Okay, guys, so here we go. We are going to start with the ribbing first. Okay, so this is going to be so easy you won't even believe it. Okay, so these are the two colors I'm going to use to create that candy stripe type of effect. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my green here. Now I'm going to use it very briefly, so hopefully, I know dark yarn doesn't always do well, but hopefully you guys will be able to see it okay. All right, so we're going to begin by placing a slip knot on our hook here, and then just chain up 10. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. So you don't want it too tightly, you don't want it too loose either. Let's put that over here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to find the second chain from the hook. So remember, we never count the loop that's on the hook. So we have 1 and 2. And into that chain, what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch. So you're just going to insert your hook, pull a loop through, and then keep pulling it through the loop on your hook. Remember to keep it somewhat loosely because we're going to be spending a lot of time doing slip stitches in this first little section here. So you're going to insert again, pull through, and then pull through the other loop. Okay, and you're going to do that all the way to the end of your row here. And in the end, you're going to have 9 stitches in total. Okay, now I forgot to mention, don't slip stitch into the very last stitch of this row. So you've got 8 stitches, so it looks something like that. And this is where we actually want to introduce our other color. So I'm just going to pull it out a little bit here. It's working, kind of feel a little tricky. So I'm going to place my hook back in here. And I'm going to insert my hook into that last stitch. But instead of yarning over with the green, I'm going to drop the green for now, and I'm going to yarn over with these, I guess this creamy color here. So I'm going to use that to pull through and then pull through the other loop. Now you're going to want to pull on that green a little bit just to tighten it. And then you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. Okay, so you've got the chain going up and then you've got the slip stitches coming down. So now we're going to continue slip stitching. And so we are going to go back into, hopefully you can see that here, going to go back into the stitch we just came out of here. Do you see that? And we are going to insert our hook, and this is why you don't want to stitch too tightly. Okay, so the chain 1 doesn't really count as anything, it just helps us to turn. So then you pull that through, and then you pull it through that loop. So I think now it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. And I'll just pull down on that. And later I'll tie those two together. And then I just go down the row here, and then I find the next stitch. With slip stitches, they're very shallow, so you're going to want to help them through. And pull through and slip stitch. And that's it. You're going to do that all the way to the end of your row. And this will be row number 2. Okay, so I'm at the end of row number 2. So I have something that looks like that. It's nothing crazy, right? Now, I did accidentally pull this tail a little too tightly because that's the first stitch there, and it's really important that I keep my stitch count even. Okay, so at the end of row number 2, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And we're going to slip stitch our way back. And this is essentially all we're going to do for rows and rows and rows to create that initial length that we need. Okay, so I've chained 1 and I'm going to go right back into that very first stitch there. I'm going to help it along. And I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to do that all the way down to the end of the row. Now, anytime you're working towards the end where your non-working yarn is and your tails are, that's generally where we're going to change colors. So in this case, we're going to keep changing colors every 2 rows. Okay, so you can maybe snip these two tails a little bit shorter if they're a bit distracting. Okay, so now every time you move towards that tail, you're going to slip stitch into every row except the last one. And again, I'm going to meet up with you there and I'll show you. That is usually where we get ready to change colors before we work that last stitch there. Okay. Okay, just working the 8th stitch here, slip stitch, and now I have one more stitch to go. So I am going to insert my hook in there, and I really got to help it along because I pulled it a little too tight. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the cream and I'm going to reintroduce my green here. And that is what I'm going to pull through to help me start round number 4. So I have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, round number 4. So you can see that creates, just kind of feels like a chunky little bit of crochet. But once you do more subsequent rows, you will see that these little ridges come through just really nicely. So that is all I'm going to do. I'm going to keep repeating this. So now I've got the green. I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and right back into that first stitch, I'm going to insert and slip stitch. And then I continue slip stitching all the way down to the end. So I'll have 9 stitches. And then once I get to the end, I'm going to chain 1 and turn and make my way back. Okay, so I'm just going to get you guys there. Once you do a few of these rows, it'll get a little easier. You'll probably get a little quicker as you go along. I already love how this green and the cream with the tinsel running through it is looking so Christmassy. I love it. So we're getting closer to the end here. There we go. And then we have one more. It's usually that chain 1 from the previous row that we're working into. There we go. And remember to keep it relaxed and as consistent as you can. If you start tightening up, then you're going to get some bunching here. Look at how cool that looks. And then, of course, you chain 1 and you make your way back down. Okay? And then, as I've said before, when you have 1 stitch left, you insert your hook, but then you pull through the new color. And that is what you're going to do all the way until you get the length that you need. Okay, so this is the bottom cuff. So if I grab this here, I know it doesn't look like much yet, but this is what we are creating right now. So this is what we are working on. Okay, so this part is super, super easy. So just do rows and rows and rows and rows and go until you get the length of that measurement you took. So for me, I'm going to just keep going until I get a total of 48 inches or 122 centimeters. Now, for those of you that crochet a lot of garments or that sew, you might say, but hey, you didn't make any adjustments for ease in the garment. And I did that on purpose because, again, it is a cardigan and it's not generally something I'm going to cinch shut, not to mention that we are also going to then crochet a collar. So basically this measurement for me is going to wrap around snugly so that if I were to close the cardigan, the 2 edges would just touch. But then in another part, when we meet up again, we are going to crochet a little collar, and that's going to add some ease in the garment so it can move around a little bit more. So for now, I'm going to leave you to do that. All right, guys, happy crocheting, and I'll see you back here in a little bit. Okay, guys, so I have completed my bottom trim. You can see it's got some nice stretch there. And so I have achieved my length, so it looks pretty long on here. And so I have my 48 inches, and of course it's got a little extra stretch, so that'll make it nice and comfy. And as always, when you're done, just double check and place it around the widest part of your body just to make sure it sits really relaxed, very, very comfortable. So this is what it looks like from the front, and this is what it looks like from the back. So I am now ready to snip my yarn here. And so I'm just going to do that there. I'm going to snip my yarn, and then I would recommend you guys weave in your ends here. So this is a good time to do this before we move on to part number 2. So this is the end of part number 1. So remember, we're working this in pieces here. So part number 1 was to start with the bottom trim, because of course we're working from the bottom up for our cardigan. And I hope you found it pretty easy. Like, it's very simple, just creating a little trim here. And if you have any questions about this, of course, make sure, just leave them for me in the comment box down below. And you can always reach me directly via email. I know some of you guys like to do that. And you can email me at info@crochetcrafty.com. As always, come visit me on the website. Lots of free goodies there for you. crochetcrafty.com on our website. So I'm going to leave it there for now for part number 1. Stay tuned for part number 2, where we will then continue to work our way up through the main body of the cardigan. So lots more crochet excitement coming your way. Thank you so much for joining me for part number 1. I hope this is getting you excited. And actually, don't forget, make sure you tag me in your creations. Even if you've just finished your trim, I'd love to see what colors you guys chose. Like, maybe you're following along exactly with me, or maybe you decide to create different colors. I'm always curious to see what colors you choose. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. I'm on both, but I'm more often on Instagram. So please do tag me. I'd love to see that. All right, that's it for today. So I will see you in part number 2. Happy crocheting, everybody.